Today we're going to be talking about a common subject that comes up in irrigation, and that's the subject of threads and thread sizes. Now, it doesn't matter what type of system you're going to be installing, you'll come across threads at some point. That could be the threads of a garden tap if you're installing micro irrigation, or the threads on the bottom of a sprinkler for pop-ups, or threads on a solenoid valve for larger systems. To identify what type of thread you have, take a look at it, and if the thread's on the outside of the fitting, then that would identify as a male fitting, whereas if the threads are internal on the fitting, that would be classed as a female. On all systems, there'll be a male and a female to come together to create the seal, just by simply screwing together. And those fittings, of course, would have to be of the same size to make sure the seal is tight. So how do we identify the size of our thread to make sure we're buying the right thing? This is commonly where people do tend to trip up. To measure your thread, simply take a ruler, preferably with inches on it, place it across the thread and read off the ruler. In this case, it says 1 inch. Now, due to the strange BSP sizing, the reading on the ruler is not accurate. What we have to do is take the measurement, 1 inch, and deduct a 1/4 inch to get our true BSP measurement. So in this case, it measures 1 inch, deduct a 1/4, this would be a 3/4 inch BSP fitting. Likewise with this tap, when we measure across, it's 1 inch, deduct a 1/4, this is a 3/4 inch tap, which is very common for garden taps. This fitting, however, when we measure it across, is 1 1/4 inch. Deduct the 1/4, this is a 1 inch fitting, commonly found on things like solenoid valves. Most items that you find on Easy Garden Irrigation are going to be measured in BSP, or British Standard Pipe. However, you may come across a few components that are listed as NPT. NPT is an American style thread type, generally not compatible with BSP. However, on some of the smaller thread sizes, such as 1/2 inch and 3/4 inch, you may be able to screw the two together with some success. If you can avoid it, we always recommend it. BSP to BSP is going to make a much better seal. On some threaded fittings, such as this reducer or a tap timer, you may find that within the female thread, there's a washer included. This is to make sure that when you screw it onto its corresponding male thread, that the seal is nice and tight. Now, if you find that you've screwed your item on and you are getting water coming up through the fitting, then that means that washer is not engaged fully. What we recommend doing in these cases is removing the fitting, checking that the washer is present, and if not, placing one in. And if the washer is present, taking a second washer and placing it over the top to double the thickness. Then when you screw this back onto your fitting, the connection point is much sooner and you should find the fitting goes on much tighter. In some cases, such as this one where we have a garden tap and a plastic fitting, it's also advised as well to take some Teflon tape, sometimes known as plumber's tape, and wrap that around the fitting before placing the item on. That will just lubricate the threads to make sure it goes on tighter and help create a nicer seal as well.